Slow transformation, growing poverty, an education system in shambles, corruption. These are the problems that bedevil South Africa 25 years into its democracy. So, will the country survive its woes? Let's get started. Good evening and welcome to the last edition of the Democracy Gauge. I'm Bongani Bingwa. Democratic South Africa emerged out of a period of unprecedented political violence, but the leaders opted for talks over war, and they helped ensure a smooth transition from apartheid without the horrors of a full-scale civil war. Despite this, the 25-year democracy journey has been a roller coaster ride for the country. The quality of life for millions of previously disadvantaged South Africans has greatly improved, but the country has also achieved incredible success. 11 research breakthroughs in medicine and science. We are, of course, the Rugby World Cup holders. We successfully hosted the 2010 FIFA Soccer World Cup, and we run one of the most ambitious HIV/AIDS treatment programs in the world. Yet despite this, the country's highs are just as dazzling as its lows. Many South Africans are disillusioned with the state of our democracy. Political patronage, poor governance, broken promises, racial tensions, joblessness, the ailing economy, all of these have some yearning for a return to the dark days. And that leads us to our poll question for this evening. Are you hopeful about South Africa's future? You can choose from our three colors. Green is for yes, yellow is for maybe, and red is for no. And of course, interact with our poll topic on Facebook and Twitter. Remember to use the hashtag SABCDG25 and hashtag SABC News. Now, this is, as I said earlier, our last show. So we're going to do things a little differently. Instead of our usual insert from our producer, Lindiwe Mabena, we're going to cross live to reporters around the country in Limpopo, the Northwest and Northern Cape to hear South Africans and what they think about the country's future. With that then in mind, let's cross over now to our first conversation in Polokwane in Limpopo, where we find our reporter Lutendo Bobodi standing by. Lutendo, good evening to you. You are in Limpopo, as I say. We're really trying to get a sense of how people across the country are feeling about the last 25 years. Are they hopeful? What are you being told?
Yeah, I was listening to your intro and I said, yeah, he's quite right. You know, throughout 2018, we talked to a whole lot of people about trying to gauge their hearts and heads and trying to gauge what they think and feel about our democracy. And, you know, it was a confluence of views and perspectives. Some saying, look, the democracy is in danger. You know, some even to an extent of saying it's no better than apartheid. Some saying, well, it's somewhere in the middle. It's neither here nor there. It's lukewarm. And others saying, well, it's perfect. It's like one of the best democracies in the world. You know, but today here I bring in a young man here. He's a security guard. He's only 23, and he's a little bit pessimistic about our democracy, where it's coming from and where it's going. And I'm going to bring him in here. He's going to be speaking to me in Venda, and I'll do the translation. The first question, I'm going to say to him what he thinks about our democracy vis-a-vis the job he does or the trade he plies. I'm going to bring him now. This please.
Nendipfi Karibakodani, Ndizura Akutama Mindoroni. ne ka tshifhinga tsha zwino democracy ne ndi khou vhona i sina zwine i khou ri itela zwone sa vhaswa nga tori ni waye ndi tshiralo nne ndi muswa na vhori ndi mulindi wa tsireledzo nda ita vhulindi ha tsireledzo just because tori ndi kale ri tshi khou isa CV mapholisani correctional service and so forth mara ahuna hune nda vha ndi khou wina hone that's why ndo fhedzisela ndo dzhia tshiimo tsha uri ndi dzhie vhulindi ha tsireledzo.
Well, he's saying he's only 23, but he thinks democracy is not working for him because he should be doing a better job than just being a security guard. But he's saying he tried to apply for jobs at the SABC and other places, but he couldn't get any job. The second question to him is what he thinks about the future of our democracy. Democracy
nne ndo lavhelesa kha nne ndi pfha ungari a huna hune khou ḓo ri isa hone ngori tshanḓanguvhoni ni tshi kha ḓi shuma kha sia ḽa mishumo vha khou dzhia vhathu vhene vha vha uri a vho ngo tea uri vha vhe hone havho fhethu vha pangela vhathu vhavho vhene vha khou vha ḓivha zwi amba uri rine ri ḓo vha ri khou sogola rine ra vha na dzi qualifications dza heyo mishumo.
Well, basically he's saying that, well, there's no future. You know, the future looks quite dark because when it comes to the corporate world, you know, the people are not being employed through merit, but through corruption. But also, again, I'm just going to bring this man. I spoke to this man earlier. He said democracy has retrogressed a little bit since Nelson Mandela died a few years back. Musirich kwamba nosumbedza zori democracy uri ayo petu ubva Cheo Mandela batuwa don't ritharuchedza
musi u tshedza nga democracy ine ya vhonesa zwino tshe mutavu vhonesona Mandela vha tshinyala democracy a i khou vha hone na luthihi vhunzhi ha vhafumakadzi na vhana vha khou vhulaiwa ḓuvha na ḓuvha zwikoloni vhana vha khou vhulaiwa u tshi train dzi khou fhisiwa u pfa u tshi mangala uri na shango ḽi nga vha khou dzhenelwa nga mini mara ri pfa ri sa vhadzulapo vha South Africa ri na gonova kha muvhuso wa zwino a ri khou vhofholowa kha u vhe na vhashumela vhapo vhanzhi shangoni vha ṱuṱuwedze vha dzhene mahayani vha ṱuṱuwedze vhadzulapo uri hu sa vhe na mabulayo hu sa vhe na u tshipiwa vhafumakadzi na vhana vhadzulapo vha konane ri vhe tshithu tshithihi maafrika roṱhe.
Yeah, basically it's talking about femicide, you know, gender-based violence. There's been a problem in the province. He's saying there should be stricter laws to put those who perpetrate these heinous crimes in jail forever.
Lutendo, thank you very much for those conversations. I think a lot of the sentiments being expressed there are common throughout the country, both from the sense of growing inequality, but also the continued levels of violence throughout our society. And we see that, of course, through gender-based violence. Let's bring in another element now to this conversation. And we're joined by founding president of a group that's really meant to deal with homelessness, Abahlali Basemjondolo, that movement, of course, headed by Sbu Zikote, who joins us now from our Durban studios. Sbu, a very good evening to you. We're asking the question this evening, are you hopeful about our democracy? For all the gains that we have made, there are also so many South Africans who have been left behind.
A very good evening to you, Bongani, and all the viewers at home. Which is important for us as Abahlali Basemjondolo, the Shack Dwellers Movement of South Africa, to say that 25 years of democracy has been paid in blood. We have made an ultimate sacrifice to this democracy to an extent that we have lost lives trying to make sure that the democracy that we have works for everyone. By everyone, I mean every women and men on the street, in the townships, in the informal settlements, in rural areas. So this democracy has really not been easy for us. However, we are hopeful that there is a lot that can change. It all depends, and the future lies with ordinary men and women and masses of South Africa who should be standing up and say, this is the kind of democracy that we want, a democracy where everyone matters, a democracy where everyone counts in our society, irregardless of their socio-economic status. This is the democracy that we are hoping that we can work together to build. Unfortunately, one has to fight very hard to organize and make sure that every South Africans, not only South Africans and of course people in the region and everyone ought to play a role in order for this democracy to work. We got to work hard to hold our political leaders accountable. And this is what Abahlali have been able to do over the years, and we are working hard to make sure that we are able to make sure that at least those who are landless and homeless also have a voice and a stake in our democracy.
Smoo, there are those who ask the question, what does freedom from persecution mean if ultimately I do not have freedom from want? In other words, if we go back to 1994, did our politicians, our political leaders overpromise what democracy could deliver?
It is most unfortunately that what we have seen, of course, is the politics of lies. We have seen our political leadership making empty promises. So many promises have been made, and of course, many promises have been broken. And this is what the cry is about when communities are neglected, when communities have no one even to report to. This is what South Africa faces. South Africa needs leaders who are passionate about this country, leaders who are responsible, leaders who have deep love for the country and for the communities. Unfortunately, what we have had so far are the politicians who are prepared to enrich themselves, who are prepared to put lies before the truth, who are prepared to, to commodify the liquid that we have that is meant, for everyone in this country. But also the high level of corruption is really a stumbling block to future stability in this country. The deepening levels of poverty, the inequality, high level of violence as we are facing the scourge of gender-based violence, violence on migrant communities, violence on LGBTIQ communities. This is the anger of the poor that can go in many directions, and which we are hopeful that we can bring all these social ills to an end only if the communities organize in order to make sure that the political leadership take the real mandate from the real people on the ground. And this is what we have to confront.
There is also a view, though, if I look at all the people that you have mentioned, and apartheid was a system deliberately designed to exclude and even brutalize all those groups and many others that you mentioned there. There is a view that says we were never going to deal with all of those things in 25 years, that perhaps sometimes the expectations were too great and unfair.
Well, the expectations were fair. What has been unfair, of course, is the promises and the culture of dependency that our political leaderships have created. They have actually built this culture of dependency. So at least what we would have achieved, at least in these past 25 years of democracy, at least is that, the working class communities have to be treated at least with respect and dignity while we strive as a nation together to find the solution of all the challenges that we face. But what you have seen is that the communities that we represent in shack settlements, in our townships, in rural communities, are actually sidelines and are actually, thrown out of our democracy. Our right to participate has been paid with blood, to even say a word of what we think in order to be able to participate in shaping and reshaping this country into the democracy that we want. Unfortunately, that opportunity
we're going
one
to
has
leave
to
it
die
there.
for.
That's all we have time for you in terms of crossing over to you, but that's your perspective. After this quick break, we're going to be going around the country talking to our reporters in the Northern Cape as well as the Northwest provinces to find out what the perspectives are in those areas. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching The Democracy Gauge, and it's all about you on this show. So the People's View allows interaction with the show candidly, and today we're going to the Northern Cape to find out what people are feeling there about South Africa's prospects. We're crossing live now to our reporter Neria Hlakotza, who is in Kimberley. Neria, we're getting a sense of the country. We really are gauging our democracy this evening. Are people feeling hopeful about the future of our country? What are they saying in Kimberley?
Good evening to you, Bongani. Of course, we do know that here in Kimberley, which is the capital city of the Northern Cape, we find various people. We find the colored community, we find the Khoisan community, specifically the Khun and the Kwe, and we find black people and white people. However, since the beginning of Democracy Gauge, we've managed to speak to the colored community who would say to us that they still feel neglected and forgotten. We've spoken to the Khun and the Kwe speakers who have also said that 25 years into democracy, they still feel that they have been forgotten and they haven't seen much changes in their lives. And of course, then we've had opportunities to also speak to the youth, the ones that were born even after 1994, with many of them just telling us that they are shocked that 25 years into democracy, they cannot find jobs. They were saying that they were hoping that once the country has been free of oppression, free of apartheid, then it would mean that them as young people would get better opportunities. But now we are joined by another young woman from here in Kimberley who has been trying all she can to make her life better. She is going through various stages of her life, finding jobs at various areas just to make sure that she feeds her family and she feeds her 3 children. But she does say, Bongane, that it hasn't been an easy road, not only because she's a woman, but because also she's a colored woman. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been speaking offline just to speak about, as much as you try to make a living and the best of what you can, it hasn't been easy for you, especially of your race and your sex, which is you being a female.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. You know what, as a colored female, and in the community that I grew up in, it is a very, very poor community called Colville. It is so difficult to find yourself in a market that is predominantly white, so to say, as well as male-dominated. So it was quite a journey for me to venture into the mining industry, seeing that it's 85%, previously 85% white dominant. I had to work extremely harder. I had to pay much more attention to what was going on around me. But at the end of the day, I think it all depends also on what you decide, on what you make of your situation.
And let's just speak then about, it's 25 years into the democracy. As a 36-year-old, for sure you were there before 1994. What were your hopes as soon as you heard that people are free? South Africa is a free country, free from oppression and apartheid. What were you hoping for? And how were you seeing the country as it stands?
Even though I wasn't born in the apartheid era, I actually grew up as my parents were obviously born in the apartheid area. So as a result, the spiral continued, and whatever they went through then obviously had an effect on us. For example, my parents didn't have the opportunity to have quality education, which meant my mother was unemployed, a single mother raising 3 kids. So as my hopes at the time, 1994, was, wow, this is a new South Africa, more opportunities, we are going to get much better. And my hopes for the future is that as a country, we can all work together with what we have, because we do have enough to make it better.
There you have it. Just views from the people here in Kimberley. Of course, one thing that still remains is that they have hope that South Africa could be a better country than it currently is.
Right, Nero, we'll leave it there from Kimberley. That's the perspective in the Northern Cape. So we've heard from a security guard, we've heard from shack dwellers, and now a mining industry executive. Next, we're going to the Northwest to find out what the perspective might be there. But that's coming up after this break. 25 years of democracy. How do you gauge the progress that has been made? We're going to hear now from the people of Mahikeng in the Northwest, and our reporter Sintleng Lehihi is on the ground. Sintleng, great pleasure to have you on the show this evening. We're going around the country. We've been to KZN, we've been to Limpopo, the Northern Cape, and of course we're coming to you now. What are people in your part of South Africa saying about their hopes or not for this democracy?
Good evening, Bongani and our viewers. We're here in the Northwest Provincial Capital, Mahikeng. We've had quite some interesting sentiments coming here from residents about their outlook for the next 25 years of our democracy. They've spoken quite vividly there about, expectations about the betterment of service delivery, the betterment of living standards, and also needing some, attention to pay to unemployment figures here in this province. You understand that this is a province that is highly dependent on mines, and many of those who have been, working in mines, as we've seen in mine operations have ceased to operate, and sentiments are shared there that more needs to be done to make our country more stable, not just economically but with energy. But for more, I'm joined by another resident here in Mafikeng, Kilebogile Mutsumi. Kilebogile, just tell us, as an ordinary resident, your outlook for the next 25 years.
Honestly, my outlook for the next 25 years as a resident of the Northwest Province, it's really sad. I would like to see the future of the Northwest Province being better, but with the current situation right now, with unemployment rate increasing all the time, with the tendering system, being defrauded all the time, corruption, with the education system, 33% being the pass rate, really, South Africa is going down the drain. Not only South Africa, but our province itself. With educated children who are from our university, Northwest University. I mean, really, they are sitting at home, they have qualifications, people are sitting in offices, they don't have those qualifications. I mean, in the Northwest Province already, Auditor General has given us an audit with no municipality that is clean, no clean audit. It's scary, it's scary. For me as a resident of the Northwest Province, I'm not happy at all. I just see the country going down the drain.
We see the problems, you've elaborated on them very well, but a word of advice that you could give to those who are in leadership?
Give companies that have the capability in the Northwest Province to assist. Let the educated be deployed in these offices. Let the ones who have experience, the know-how of how to correct whatever is happening within our offices, be given an opportunity. Let not the ruling party just deploy people for the sake of political connections. Or for me as a woman, knowing that for me to get a job in whichever department, I have to slip myself to the top. Really, we cannot allow that. It is not fair.
Thank you very much for your time, Kilebogile. Very strong sentiments coming there from Kilebogile Mutsumi, a resident here in the Northwest Provincial Capital, Mahikeng, telling us there what needs to be corrected for us to enjoy prosperity in the next 25 years of democracy. For now, back to you in studio.
Thank you, Sintleng, in the Northwest Province. We're going to wrap up this conversation then with abahlali basemjondolo, Sbu Zikode, in our Durban studios. Sbu, I suppose as we wrap up our conversation, I have to ask you then, given the sentiments that you've expressed and others have tonight, what do you think still needs to be done to overcome these many problems we face, and do you think we can get there?
Yes, absolutely. I think we should not lose hope, and the future lies with the masses of this country. All we need to do, obviously, is to come together as a country, acknowledge the problem that we all have, and find ways of dealing with the problems. But the first thing that we need to do, obviously, is to acknowledge that we have not done pretty well with so much opportunity that we've received over the past 25 years. So if we acknowledge that, and then we say, then what went wrong? And of course, people will be able to say what has gone wrong and what can be done. So we all have a dream of the kind of society we want. We have the South Africa that we want. So if we are all given that equal opportunity, I'm sure we can get there. So what I can encourage is that all struggling communities in our country, be it social movement or civil society, labor movements, to come together and propose the South Africa that we want. For the political leadership, we say empty promises must come to an end. The politic of lies and the politic of violence has to come to an end. And with that, we bring the passionate kind of leaders that will deliver to the needs of all South Africans. We think the resources that we have is enough for everyone to live the life that has dignity at least. So all evictions that are facing our cities, so that everyone has a right to the cities, and we say to government, the inequalities, the poverty, and the unemployment that exists in our country is a serious problem that, of course, can be solved by many of us coming together, not only the ruling party, on the closed doors deciding for this country. So we think we have enough human resources and wisdom that is necessary to take this country forward.
All South Africans coming together to solve our common problems. That's the sentiment I think you're expressing there. That's the way forward. Now, before we say goodbye, as always, we take a look at the results of the poll that we've been running, and there they are coming onto your screen now. I'm looking at 49% of you saying you do not have hope in this democracy. Well, thank you for watching. From me, Bongani Bingwa, and the Democracy Gauge team, we have come to the end of our season, and we wish you a festive season like no other. And cheers for the 25 years of democracy. Despite the pitfalls, much has been achieved to another 25 years. Ubusuku benzolo. Good night.